Good day. Innovation in the maritime ecosystem. How to make it work. Today I have with me Mare Straetmans, co-founder of Platform Zero. Mare, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you over here in the show. We go back quite a while. I think I was recalling, we started off in the hackathon in 2013, that when we met.
Yeah, it was a good time with still very little innovation in the maritime sector.
It was a different era, so more than 10 years ago in that sense. But you continued your journey on innovation. You started Platform Zero. Can you share a bit more about what Platform Zero is and what you're doing?
Yes, of course. We started Platform Zero 3 years ago, mainly because we saw a big challenge in scaling climate tech. So there's a lot of startups and scale-ups in our sector, the maritime and energy sector. Our climate has a big challenge, and we think that scaling climate tech is one of the smartest way of doing this. So we started Platform Zero basically to help startups and scale-ups grow. And there's a lot of things that startups and scale-ups need in their journey. You know everything about this. Mm-hmm. And we want to support that. We also want to do it ourselves, so we will be setting up some startups ourselves. But Platform Zero is really the ecosystem for climate tech in the maritime and energy sector.
You mentioned the word scaling a couple of times, scaling up, and then in the energy and maritime sector. In our customer base, we do have a lot of terminals, charterers, and ports. What would be the thing they could do on your platform, or how could they participate in the platform you have?
Yeah, well, I always say our platform is not the goal. I mean, for us, the goal is to head in innovation in the climate space. And these organizations you name are actually the clients of the innovation. So what we need from them is to become a client, or to become more a client of the innovation. So for us, it's crucial that corporates innovate and they use the ecosystem to do so. I think especially in the maritime sector, you still see a lot of companies that think that they can do it themselves. We innovate, we are a very smart company, we have some very smart people, which is true, of course. But the third step, we can do it all ourselves, that's not true anymore. You need the ecosystem to innovate, and we need these parties to involve in the ecosystem. And I've had many conversations with C-levels from these corporates, and they start to see it more. And there's so many things happening, whether you talk AI, whether you talk emission reduction and carbon credits, and there's so many things happening in the world. You cannot do that the best yourself. You need other people with that. And we still see that the corporates don't understand that they're using this innovation ecosystem. So there is a lot of new technologies they're using and new products, and they come from these startups and scale-ups, and they use it without knowing. It's like this is a product. These startups and scale-ups are a product of the innovation ecosystem. So basically, you're relying with your company on the innovation ecosystem. And we need to start that these corporates, or it needs to happen that these corporates start to see that, start to support the innovation ecosystem, and also start to use it for their innovation of their products for their clients.
Yeah, I can relate to that. One of our customers is APMT, and actually they mentioned exactly this, like we can do all the things you are doing, we can do ourselves, but you will do it differently, and you will do it better in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. There is just, I mean, if you're a shipping company, obviously you're very good at shipping, right? But making a digital platform that arranges your routes, or that does the payments, or that is such a specific technology and trade in itself. I mean, I think nobody at home would sit like, let me make my own Google Calendar. No, you use Google Calendar for that because they're extremely good at it, right? And in the maritime, we still sometimes have that response, or we do it on Excel or whatever. So now go to the people that are extremely good at that, because the solutions will bring you so much more than you can understand. Yeah. But that whole thinking, still in the development.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So industry, if you're watching this movie and you do have innovation challenges, or you see that you need innovation challenges, step up and then join on that part.
Exactly.
In the ecosystem that you have started, is there an initiative or a venture that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I would like to highlight them all. But I think what's important is that people understand that a startup is not a startup. So we have different kind of startups. Like I think, for example, your digital company is a beautiful example of what's happening in the digital space in maritime. But for example, we also work with Hard Hyperloop. They are a startup that, scale up, I would say, that has made a technology for fast transportation in vacuum tubes. Basically, imagine a 100-kilometer tube, and you can shoot or people or goods through that with 2,000 kilometers an hour. That's a total different way of transportation. They won the Elon Musk X Prize, so they've done something good, and they're on top of their solution and developing great stuff. But it's a total different game than from, for example, a digital game in maritime. They have before you have these decisions to develop the technology, takes years and years, and also to put down the first product, it takes years and years and hundreds of millions of investments. So for me, it's very much that every startup has a different aspect to it, and a very different way of working and of coming to realization. So for me, it's always difficult because there's so many. I love one. I know that is collecting plastic from the waterways with a floating drone because it's so clearly good environmental impact. I love the ones that have biodegradable blocks in the oceans, so that if you build something in a port, you have a wall that keeps the water out, and normally that's very solid and boring concrete blocks. They've made a bio block where things grow on, so nature can restore. So these things, obviously are great, but there's so many. There's so many. Yeah, for sure.
I think you touched upon an interesting topic with the Hard Hyperloop, saying like it's a long journey basically that we're on. And you also mentioning like maritime and energy, big sectors. The experimental approach, how key is it, and how do you see that part, and how does that journey typically look like?
I think maybe first for myself also to define the experimental approach. It's an approach of starting small, testing, and seeing whether something works. And I think you see this approach in digital, but you should also see this in industry. And I think it's crucial. The reason why it's crucial for me is because it should be a low-cost way of testing whether something works and has value. It's really, you can explain somebody what a Coca-Cola is, but until you've tasted it, you only know what it is, right? I can explain you everything about this drink, but you will have no clue what it tastes like. You need to taste it. And this is also what happens with innovation. The problem is, so I think it still works. I think we need to get a lot better at the experimental approach. It's also almost a trade to be able to make something small and very cheap, but test what you want to test. So does this work? Does the client like this product? Is it going to stand in a sea ocean? Is it not going to break? How can you do low cost testing? And I think, I've spoken last year to a company that did a low-cost testing with a 75 million project. So it doesn't sound low cost, but the real solution is billions. So they did actually, with testing CO2, putting CO2 under the ocean bed, they had a low-cost project for that. They had sensors taped together with duct tape to make it happen. But it was their low-cost way of seeing, does this work? I think it's crucial, but I think we need to get a lot better at it. We don't understand it. We are risk averse. We want to make sure, and it's also the corporate way of working. You have to explain to your manager what you're doing, and if it fails, why have you failed? And it's very not accepting the risks and the failures. If we become more risk averse on the topics that we can, of course, not with human safety and with sustainability. There are some places where you cannot take the risk, but there are so many risks we can actually accept, and then we can test faster and cheaper. That would help the sector tremendously. But it's difficult, and we're not used to it, and it's almost contradictory to our sector.
I can relate to that. And the other thing I see is it is becoming, and it's step by step as well. There are quite strong methodologies being developed on how to productize or how to do discovery, how to find these things out.
Yeah.
And yes, I see there are really expensive things like the 75 million experiment. But it's good to see that it was not productized fully yet. And the duct tape, I think, is a very good example of spending a lot of money, but it's all in place on that sense.
Maybe short other example. I think what also happens is I spoke last week to somebody that said that's leading a digital team at a SME, so to say, 100 people, and the team thought they were working agile, but they were working waterfall. So I think also in our sector, you see a lot like the misconception of what it is and what it actually is and how it works. Yeah, we don't know yet. We don't own that. A lot of people don't own that. Yeah. And then you get these misconceptions, and then people think they're working waterfall of agile, but they're not, and then it doesn't work. That whole agile, why we're doing that, the way of working doesn't work. So also the understanding the topic and the way of working and really owning it, that would be a big help, I think. Yeah. Also for clients. So I assume also it helps if your clients better understands this. It probably helps you, I would expect, to better engage with this client and to help him faster and better.
Yeah, you need to allow failure. I think exactly. that is one of the key things, and it's a journey. I think, and that's something that we see a lot. You can have a look at the data. You can have as many data as you wanted, but it's actually about using that data and putting that data into action. Yeah. And exactly there, you can have all the technology, you can have all the answers hidden in the data. But if you do not start using it, if you do not put that into the process of adapting that in the industry, using that, leveraging it to save CO2 emissions or to make it more efficient, you're lost anyway.
You're lost,
on that part.
Yeah.
We touched a couple of times on the topic of money, but one of the things I see in maritime and which I found is like money doesn't buy everything. It's also a lot about completely different things. You've been in this industry now also for more than 10 years. What is your take on that part?
Yeah, that's the first question. Money for sure doesn't buy everything, and I think most often it doesn't buy the good things, and I think here that's too. So maybe first a brief example of how we work. A lot of things that I've built in my past is about making a movement. It's making a cultural change. We need to move in a different direction, and the movement is about people. You need to get people on board, and there's people that are always running up front and love change and improvements, but there are also people that are skeptical. And the funny thing is, maybe the people I like the most, people that seem to be very skeptical, but they're just skeptical because they're worried and engaged. So I've been with people that said, yeah, but this whole digital doesn't work for me. And I went into discussion with them. I said, why doesn't it work for you? I said, yeah, well, we get all these tools sent at us. It only takes us more work. It costs us more work, and it doesn't give us anything. It is to give somebody else in the company something or whatever, right? And I said, yeah, but that's not how digital should work. It should work for you. It should make your work better, easier, safer, faster, whatever, right? So if you talk about money doesn't buy you everything, it's very much, I think, the people aspect of things. You need to get people on board. You need to understand people. You need to also what we said in the beginning. If you want to test things and you want to test things low cost, it needs a lot of creativity to be really low cost, right? Because it's very easy to say, yeah, but we need this. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, wow, we've got this project that costs 500,000 euros. Okay, so what now if you have 20,000 euros? Can you still do the test that you want to do, right? And you need to engage people from different angles. They need to feel safe to bring in the ideas. So the whole people aspect, from leadership to the critical guy to the creativity in your project, that is a big part of what innovation and impact is. I think it's also the fun part, but it's also the difficult and time consuming. So you have to be willing to invest in that, and it's very easy to skip it, saying, well, let's put up a lot of money and see what happens.
what I also see is like people have been trained to actually avoid every uncertainty, to avoid every risk in that, and then especially in the operational context and safety. I get it, but there are a lot of different places where you actually can experiment. Yeah. But there's this big machine which is going on and on and on, and every change or every is perceived as a risk. I think that is something we encounter a lot. Is like the change part of changing something in an operational process which is running. Yeah. That really takes consciousness and the leadership part you mentioned as well.
I still like it, the story that I had the discussion with a group of people from an organization, and the discussion was, can we open up this data? We have this batch of data, and it said, can we open this up? And there were like 7 people around the table, and one said, no, we cannot open this data. This is our data. It's very sensitive, and blah, blah. And then there was another guy from the same organization in the room and said, well, actually, a part of this data is already open. You could access it through Chamber of Commerce, or I don't know. There was a part of that data that already needed to be shared. And then we got into discussion. Okay, so now we have a discussion. Okay, part of the data is sensitive. Which part? And at the end of the discussion, we found out like 10% or even less than 10% of the data was sensitive, which means we could open up 90%, right? And those kind of discussions. But you talk about leadership. If everybody follows, if the guy that said, no, it's sensitive data would have been a leader in that room, nobody would have said, but we can actually open it up, right? So it is the leadership that needs to give the example, to ask the smart questions. Like, okay, if we want to open up the data, why do we want to open up? What can it bring us? What are the risks? So what is the whole picture of this, right? And if you have that good discussion, a lot of things can happen. Yeah. And that's the leadership role.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of time. I've been involved in the open data discussion on getting data available, making that available. And you can do really nice and good things with it. In the maritime industry, I think it's technical discussion whether it's open data or public data, but I think everything with AAS and the visibility that has been created and the predictability that has been brought by that data that is available, that no one else ever would have shared. Yeah. If you can see what the savings or the impact already is in efficiency and in planning perspective, that's immense in that respect.
So I think also you talked money doesn't buy everything. Also, we need to bring leadership on board, because I talked to one leader at some point, and we were talking digital. It was like a business leader from the maritime sector. And he literally said to me, I have presentations on AI, artificial intelligence, but I'm lost within 30 seconds. And he said, not because I don't want to understand it, but just because I just don't get it. And so I also think it's the task of the one that explains the AI that starts with a good introduction, saying, what is it? What is AI? What should we look at? If you've never seen a digital thing, don't know what digital is, what is AI? We need to bring people on board. And I understand them. So how do you expect this leader? So now you come in with a digital AI-driven tool with this leader and say, my tool is great, and it's got AI and could do A, B, and C, and it's so smart, and it's learning, blah, blah, and it's much more technical. And he's lost because, what is AI? So I'm giving my part of my operation in the hands of AI. Is AI a self-lifting thing? There's big stories around it. How should I deal with it? So.
Yeah, and I think the other obligation technology companies have is contextualizing. I think you need to translate it into the language and the problem space of the person you're talking to. Yeah. I think this is. It sounds like an easy link how AI can solve something, but this is the most complicated part. Yeah. There is no silver bullet. Even in AI, there is no silver bullet. It's still hard work, and there needs a lot of things need to happen in that part.
Exactly. I think that's also where the distrust towards something like AI comes from the people that don't know it, because it's been presented as the silver bullet or the things, and they know such a thing doesn't exist. Yeah, well, so where's the catch, right? They're not stupid people, so they know something's there. Yeah. But money doesn't buy everything. This is it, right? Yeah. Sit down with the people, know your clients, engage, have the conversation, and 2 ways, right? Because we're talking very much, I think, at least that's my perspective, from the startup and the entrepreneur side. But also corporates need to do this. Yeah. And they are, if I can say so, pretty bad at it, right? Take the time to understand, to ask questions, to one instant, invest your time, to try. It's something, they're just having their operations, they're busy every day, which is crucial, but
Yeah, but
there's more to it.
You need to take an additional.
to
I can really. That is one of the things I get out of it.
Yeah.
If you want to engage and you really have invested time, it's still very hard to get on the table with the right people and to have a conversation. It's just a conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's not about.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we had a very good conversation, but I do have one last question for you. And sharing is caring. I think if you look back on the journey that you have been on, what is the biggest lesson you have learned so far in this journey? Yeah.
In this journey, wow, that's a tough question. So many lessons. Yeah, I would say for me, it's very much about the people and the movement that you need. So, and maybe I can put it even broader. I very much like leadership school in Switzerland. IMD has a new leadership framework, has a leadership framework for digital. And one of the elements in this leadership framework, so that leaders should be able to do and to propagate, is the hyper awareness, which for me basically means look around, right? Open your eyes, see more than just if you're running, you just see the 1 meter in front of you, but see the forest, see the car that's coming, that's threatening you, but also see the other runners with whom you can run, right? So the hyper awareness, so open up your vision. That is for me maybe the biggest lesson, and also for myself. I also have made many mistakes in the way I've worked. I've in the last couple of years, I think I've become better at partnering with other organizations. Partnering is crucial, but also to learn that some people respond differently in difficult situations, but also the way that corporates really want to sometimes innovate, but are just stuck in their own system. So the people want to, but the system. So also for me, but I think it's for everybody, opening up, look around, see what's happening, really take your time to perceive and to understand further than your daily routine. That is maybe also what we propagate, but also my own personal lesson and also joy, right? I get joy out of it. For me, it's fun. Yeah. I go to, these are maybe strange examples, but I go to social projects in Rotterdam with kids that struggle, in their daily life, going to school. Because why? Because it opens up my horizon, and I think it makes me a better professional, a better human, first of all, but it also makes me a better professional.
Yes, interesting. Thank you very much for that one. And this hyper awareness together with focus. So I think that taking responsibility on one end, which is focus, but be aware of what is all around. We've got to do it together.
Yeah. And that's the difficulty because hyper awareness and focus are almost contradictory, and you have to do both.
Yeah.
So I never said this was easy. This is very hard. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you for tapping in, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.